came back in August of 2020 and basically didn't recognize my hometown any longer. Um, City buildings throughout downtown were all boarded up, graffiti everywhere, graffiti on our church, and I noticed that the statue had been taken down.
Racial justice protests that followed the murder of George Floyd in 2020 saw statues of historic figures removed from towns and cities across the United States. Now, in the newest phase of America's culture wars, campaigners are trying to put some of them back. Jack Conte is a businessman from Columbus, Ohio, who's leading a legal campaign to reinstall a statue of Christopher Columbus that was removed from outside the City Hall in 2020. Welcome to the show, Jack.
Thank you very much.
So set the scene for us. What happened in 2020?
Well, I actually wasn't in Columbus at the time. I was in Oklahoma and Texas and came back in August of 2020 and basically didn't recognize my hometown any longer. City buildings throughout downtown were all boarded up, graffiti everywhere, graffiti on our church, and I noticed that the statue had been taken down.
And this was a 20-foot statue of Columbus outside City Hall, is that right?
That's correct. It had been erected in the mid-50s. It had been a gift from the city of Genoa, Italy, and a local group of Italians through a club called the Piave Club. And it had created the first sister city relationship worldwide between Genoa, Italy, and Columbus, Ohio. And this was a gesture of goodwill to promote that.
And Genoa, of course, is the birthplace of Columbus, which is why it's significant.
Correct. It was very historic, especially at that time. You had President Eisenhower, who was very much in favor of this. We had a very charismatic governor, Governor Rhodes, supportive of it. And the Democrat mayor, M.E. Sensenbrenner, was very supportive of this. And when they had the dedication, better than 50% of the population of City Columbus was there in attendance.
And why is Columbus, Ohio, named after Columbus?
Historically, and I may be a little bit off on part of this, but they were trying to figure out a name for the city, and Columbus was sort of a crossroads at the time, back in the early 1800s, and they came up with bringing or uniting everybody under that name, because Columbus was such a historic figure in the formation of the United States.
And that is absolutely fascinating. So there's not a sort of Italian community in Columbus that generated this. It was because of the a thought of what would be an appropriate name to represent kind of the center of America as it was developing.
Columbus was primarily settled, Ohio itself was settled by Germans initially. And the Italian population really didn't start to come into central Ohio until the probably 1920s, 1930s.
And whose decision was it to remove the statue in 2020?
It was our mayor, Ginther, who's made that decision.
And is he still around? Does he have a view? So has this become a kind of election issue?
It's not become an election issue yet, but he has competition within his own party, and I think he realized he made a huge mistake when he took the statue down, but now he doesn't see any way to get it back up because it's such a political issue on the left in the United States.
He's a Democrat.
Correct. For me, it's not a political issue. It's a right and wrong issue. We have a constitution. We have a state constitution. We have city charter. We have policies. We have procedures, everything in place, especially for artwork and historic landmarks. and none of that was followed. It was just a split second decision uh, during all the controversy in July of 2020 to just take the statue down. There was no public hearings, no discussion, nothing, and it's down. And so, we're held accountable as citizens here in the United States to follow the law. And if we don't follow the law, we're accountable to it. And politicians shouldn't be any different. They shouldn't have the ability to make decisions based on their own whims or to satisfy certain people. And I think, at least here, I think this is more of a global problem. We got kind of a silent majority where things happen and nobody actually makes or takes a stand to correct a wrong. And I think we're finally getting to the point where people realize, what is this statue? What does it represent? We have a city that's already named Columbus. Are we going to change the name of a city that's been around for 200 years?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting point. And let's talk then, because we have our own statue controversies in the UK. But let's talk about Columbus and his legacy. So Columbus is regarded as one of the people who discovered America, although he was mainly active in Central America and the Caribbean. And obviously, what has happened over the last few years, perhaps going back slightly further, there's been what one might call revisionism. And there are some people who regard Columbus a brutal ruler of the colonies that he colonized on behalf of the Spanish Catholic Church. They regard him, as enslaving the indigenous population, and some even go so far as saying he sort of carried out a genocide. Do you think Columbus's record is more nuanced, or do you think he should simply be praised as the man who discovered America and effectively created the modern world, which is how others see him?
Yeah, I was saying it's kind of funny that we're basically trying a man in our modern courts today for something that may have happened 600 years ago. And every bit of it is based on hearsay. Columbus, it was claimed he had journals of all of his trips. None of those are available. None of them have survived, if in fact he did have these journals. All that has survived are some letters that he wrote to various people and the records in the Spanish court for when he was tried after his second or third voyage. For me personally, and as a child, when I was educated back in the 60s and 70s, Columbus was a hero. We had a poem about him. He sailed the ocean blue in 1492 and discovered America. Here was a man who was put on this wooden ship. He was leading an expedition to India, a western route to India, and he happened upon the Caribbean islands and thought he was in India. And, the indigenous people, he gave them the name of Indians. And he proved that the world wasn't flat, because at the time they thought the world was flat. And how he did this voyage 3 different times is beyond me. But for me, that's historic. It's the thing heroes are made out of type of thing. What's happened is, I think in the 70s, there was a gentleman named Howard Zinn who wrote a book, a history book, and it was the history of the United States and the world told by the indigenous people and the blacks. And to me, I don't know how it can be used as a history book and to teach children, because, there's fiction and there's nonfiction. And when you're saying what you think somebody would say, that doesn't make it historical. That is an interpretation. There's no factual documentation to support his basis for these discussions. And in his book, he quotes a gentleman by the name of De la Casa, who was from Spain. His father was on the first or second voyage of Columbus, And he was there. He came to the Caribbean many years later and fell in love with the native people. And he felt that they were being treated wrong. And so he went back to Spain, and he wrote a book. And in the book, he's the one that accused Columbus. He said he had Columbus's journals, and Columbus committed all these atrocities. Well, De la Casa was wanted in Spain for treason. When he died, he bequeathed that his publications not be published until 45 years after his death. Hence, nobody would be around to refute any of the comments or anything that he made. So, this is what's being used and quoted in Zen's book. This is what's being used and taught in our schools today. And this is what's being used and causes the narrative that we see for all this anti-Columbus hate that's being spewed by the left in the United States. And so for me, his books should be classified as fiction. They aren't historical. They aren't actually quoting specific people for these comments. And, we should have discussions. These are all things that we should discuss instead of one group just deciding this is fact and this is the way it's going to be, and basically destroying an amazing piece of artwork that was donated to a city with good
And
cause.
Jack, finally, what is the next stage? When do you expect your lawsuit to get a hearing? Could it be appealed and so on? I mean, how long do you think this process will take till it resolves itself one way or the other?
Well, it's kind of funny because when we got into this, our attorneys, we discussed it, and they said, after we do the filing, there'll be a lull. There'll be a period of time before things start to happen again. So I would imagine, I talked to them yesterday, and I think we will hear some kind of response from the city over the next 3 weeks. They have until the middle of August to make a response. We were approached by the Department of Justice about settlement, and we are agreeable to an agreement to working this out. Although they've had 6 years to do that, there's been various commissions appointed by the mayor to explore this situation and come up with a solution. They had a commission and got the results of that, the suggestions from that commission, did not act on it. Then they started a second group called Reimagining Columbus. They took a $2 to $3 million grant from the Mellon Foundation to explore what their options were and to come up with a plan. I was active through that whole process. It was ridiculous what they did with that money and how it was spent. They came up with a plan for a $100 million park with no funds, no land, and that was when I decided I needed to take action because I'm 67 years old. I'd like to share this statue with my grandchildren as my family did with me 50 years ago. So I knew if I didn't do something and organize our community, the statue would never go up. It's interesting too, because over the last 15 years, we've had 2 other landmarks removed from the city of Columbus with no discussion. There was a replica of the Santa Maria that was made and put on display in a river across from City Hall back in the 80s when Ameriflora was displayed in Columbus. I think it was around 2015. They took it out of the river to repair it and rehabilitate it, and raised around $2 or $3 million. The money's gone. The ship is derelict now. It's laying in a field at the city's treatment plant. Then we had a park that was adjacent to our Italian Catholic church, Christopher Columbus Park. It's no bigger than a postage stamp. And without a public hearing, any discussion, anything, the name was stripped and the name was changed. And while all this is happening, we have a city street on the east side of the town that was renamed after a Somali warlord. No public hearing, no discussion, anything, and boom, it's done.
Absolutely. So this is a fascinating battle that you're waging. Jack Conte, thank you so much for joining us on Times Radio.
Thank you for your hearing us out, and best of luck to all of you.